Welcome to Spirits and Cousins. We're pleased to bring you a two-part interview with one of the most iconic paranormal tech experts. In both the 1984 and the 2016 versions of Ghostbusters, the movie, a group of scientists are shunned by academia for insisting that ghosts not only exist, but can be captured using state-of-the-art technology. While these were not the first fictional stories to depict the paranormal as a legitimate science, they are arguably the most iconic. The archetype of the gadget-bearing scientist tracking down specters and spooks has since become prevalent, particularly in popular TV shows like Ghost Hunters. There is a great deal of other popular ghost hunting and ghost-busting technology. Ghost hunters can use infrared cameras, sensitive microphones, special thermometers to measure ambient temperatures, and night vision goggles so they can see in the dark. Unlike Ouija boards, dowsing rods, and ghost boxes, these are actual scientific instruments that can be used for valid research. We're fortunate to have someone at the forefront of paranormal tech, and his equipment has been seen on shows like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, Kindred Spirits, and his own show, The Ghosts of Morgan City. Today, we're excited to share our two-part interview with the paranormal mad scientist himself, K.D. Stafford. Today, we're delighted to have a guest who has truly impacted the landscape of paranormal technology and investigating for the better. Please welcome K.D. Stafford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. As a co-founder with his wife, Katie, of Supernatural Inc. and Supernatural Inc. Paranormal Research and Development, Katie and Katie, that's right,
Yes,
KD
that's
and
correct.
Katie T have produced some of the most used, most cutting-edge investigative equipment out there. Known as the paranormal mad scientist, Katie is known for having built much of what started off as experimental devices, but is the standard today for devices like spirit boxes. You've seen Katie and his equipment on shows like Ghosts of Morgan City, Jack Osbourne's Portal to Hell, Fright Club, Ghost Brothers, and Ghosts of Devil's Perch, just to name a few. Speaking of perch, I'd rather catch a bass, but perch is okay.
Large amount.
Yes, that's right. In addition to the design and production of investigation equipment, Katie and KT have also been involved in their own paranormal investigations. A large portion of what Katie does through Supernatural Inc. goes towards veterans, which is near and dear to Katie. First, let us welcome you, Katie. I know this has been a long time in the planning. And before we hop into asking you a bunch of questions, I know because it's something you're passionate about. Tell us about your work with the veterans.
Oh, well, being a veteran, I do as much as I can. This coming weekend, we will be doing an event at Fort Leonard Wood. And
Right.
That's exciting because I'm pretty sure nobody's ever investigated, outside on Fort Leonard Wood. And I'm sure there's some soldiers there that have an interest in paranormal stuff, and they've probably done a little poking around, but we're going to get some exclusive access out there to the USO Club and a few other places. And that's where I did my basic and AIT, and I went to my advanced leaders course training there. So that'll be pretty cool to get to go back. It's kind of my old stomping ground training wise in the Army. And we're always open to doing events, local to us, anything that will this benefiting veterans or anything like that, as far as equipment. If you're out there, if you're a veteran and you want to buy a ghost box, hit us up. If you're not a veteran, hit us up. But veterans, you're going to get a discount for being a veteran.
And how will they hit you up?
You can hit any of the socials, Facebook, Instagram. I think I'm even on X. I am on X. Did I say Instagram? I did. KD, I have my own little page. It's something that they made me do, but it's like a KD Stafford fan page for all 12 of you out there.
They made you do it.
Yeah,
I love
they
it.
did. I've never been very good at self promotion, but thankful to people like Greg Myers, who gave me the Paranormal Mad Scientist name, for promoting me, and all you fantastic people who let me come and talk on your podcast. So yeah, all the socials, you can hit us up on there. Just send us a message, see anything you like. If you want to know what we have, then just hit us up.
Well, I think it helps when you spend 8 years in the Army as a combat equipment technician. That probably certainly supported your love of technology.
Yeah, it kind of got me into, the microcontroller and like programming stuff. The more advanced stuff that we have downrange is all like you can access all the systems online on the vehicles with a computer. You can basically operate it from outside the vehicle via a computer. And so, yeah, it was cool. I got to learn a lot of things from a lot of super smart people, so that definitely gave me my time in the Army, I guess, gave me the ability, like the hands-on ability to do the stuff. And then I just had to, when I got into electronics as opposed to messing with electrical stuff in vehicles, then that was another learning experience. But, like radio electronics is way different.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot more components there, and reading schematics and all that. And then, before you know it, you're drawing your own schematics for circuits and having your own circuit boards custom made. So, yeah, Army was definitely a basis, though.
Well, there's quality, and then there's real quality. And I think that's really what sets your devices apart from everyone. When we first found you, you're going to laugh. We first found you because of Ghost Inspector Greg on Instagram.
Oh, yeah. Ghost Inspector Greg. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm making him a box right now, as a matter of fact.
Oh, cool.
Another box. Yeah.
He uses one of your boxes. Which one is it, Courtney? Which one did we originally see? The Nanocom or something like that? Yeah, and he was using it at grave sites, and it just was we came across it on Instagram or something, which led us to look you up because coming from Tech
Greg.
Yes.
We went down a huge rabbit hole one night, which was, Courtney, you got to look at this. Well, and then rabbit hole.
You know why? You know why, KD? Because so much of the tech out there is crap. It is.
Well,
it's like little plastic boxes. It's, you could just pick it up and there's no weight to it. And I'm looking at Courtney. I'm like, we should be in this business. Like, let's take it apart and see what's in there on some of this stuff. And whatever he was using looked like there was some, technology in it. It looked like it was, it had some quality to it. And so she started digging around to find out where this came from. And it was hard. I guess scarcity really drives demand, because we had a hard time finding you guys. And then Courtney reached out and was talking to Katie, and we wanted a RoboBox. And we got a RoboBox and the purple. What was it? What is it that we got, Courtney?
I ended up also getting the purple static node.
Okay.
Oh, the static nodes. Yeah. That was something Katie wanted to do, was the static nodes. She wanted to do, she's into the environmental, stuff. And I think it's a cool idea. So, it's not a brand new thing, but it's a little bit better of a twist, I think, on the static detector, with the dome and everything. You can see it. You don't have to take the battery out every time you use it. I try to make stuff more efficient kind of to use.
Yep.
So I'm actually remaking the static dome right now. I'm playing around with a couple of different things for it too.
Oh, very cool. And I love it too, because it's visual. I like that visual piece. And especially if you're doing a video, then that visual is really nice to have.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool experiments I want to try still with that. Like I want to get a whole bunch of them, like 12 of them, and just you can use them lots of different ways. If you think so, let's say there's stories of somebody stomping up and down the hall in a haunted house, for instance. Which hallway is it? Okay, let's set up these static detectors all the way down this hallway, and it would be really cool if you got on the static detectors, they just start going out as something's moving down the hallway. So that's kind of the idea.
That'd be so cool. There's a road out here called Old Stage Road, and that would be super neat to line them up along the road because it's haunted along that whole road.
Oh yeah. And there's another device that we've made. It's called the MAD, and it basically detects something moving towards it or away from it. It can detect your EM field.
Really?
It's not, yeah. And so it'll light up and give it a audible alarm whenever you move towards it. And then when you move away from it, it'll give another alarm and a different light will light up. And so it's similar to the static node in a way.
What got you into developing tech and devices for paranormal investigating? Like, what got you into all this?
Well, I've always been an uber nerd. I've always liked to take stuff apart. So the tech things kind of always been there. It's always, it's always been one hobby to another. It's trains and, paintball guns, you name it. I've gotten into it at some point. Cars, name it. And then, when I was in the Army, we got into checking out all the historic sites in Germany. And we thought, well, we could have been doing this for years, back home. Actually, I kind of got the idea before I went in the Army, but that's because I listened to Coast to Coast AM. It just kind of festered on me, the EVP recordings, right? And so actually, I really did my first EVP recording in like 2005. Yeah, 2005. But then, okay, so I get out of the Army, we get to Kansas City, and we're checking out places, kind of doing our own little thing, just me and Katie. And I'm like, man, this paranormal equipment is expensive. And, just as a hobbyist, at that point, it's tough to buy equipment. Well, you just have to buy it little by little, and I was like, man, we're spending a lot of money on equipment. I could probably make a lot of this. Also, like, if I'm using something for paranormal investigation purposes, I like to know not just what it does, but I like to know how it does it. That's important to me. The way I think, I need to know how it works. That's like with the apps. I'm not a fan of using apps for paranormal investigation. I think there's a place for apps, but unfortunately, that's not really the route that's taken. You end up with like ghost radar and stuff like that, and that's not really using the capabilities that our phones have. But anyway, that's another subject. But so I felt like I could build my own equipment, and then I started building some stuff, and I'd take it. And I think we went to a couple of events, like public investigations we bought tickets to, and then people just saw what I had, and they just kind of went from there. They wanted one, and then people are calling me like, hey, can you come out and bring some equipment to this paranormal convention? A couple of those type of situations happened. So then it just kind of went from there. Yeah, and I never a lot of people, I know a lot of people are like, oh man, I want to have my own TV show and this, that, and the other. And I never really thought that way. I never thought, oh, I want to be on a TV show. That would be so great. But
I can imagine you sitting there going, I want to get on a TV show. How do I get on a TV show?
No, yeah, if you know me, well, I guess I'm kind of outgoing and I'm kind of loud and but I never was like, look at me on, I want to be on TV. That was never me. Yeah. So it was an interesting set of circumstances that are events that led up to me getting on TV. But yeah, it wasn't intentional. But yeah, it was from all the equipment and stuff that I just made just because I didn't have enough money to buy it.
So what was that first equipment that you developed?
Let's see. That's a good question. So the first thing I actually made and took out and used was an EMF detector. I made one just, out of a microcontroller, a bunch of LEDs and stuff. It was just this gnarly looking thing and on this wooden board, but it was cool and it worked. And so that obviously kind of fueled me to look at more things. And then shortly thereafter, I found, I'd always heard of ghost boxes, right? I've heard of ghost boxes for a while, but when I think I was watching Ghost Adventures, and I was SB7, so Zach's like using SB7 all the time. I'm like, that's cool. I got to get one of those. So I got one, and it was like $100 for this little tiny radio, and that you can't hear. I know, no offense, Gary Galka, if you ever hear this, but you can't hear it. You have to attach it to a speaker and do some other stuff. So I was like, I think I could probably, and I got some really good results from it. I'm not saying SB7 is a bad spirit box to use. It's great. I've used it, and I still have two. And some of my best responses come from SB7. But yeah, so ghost boxes is kind of my forte.
Very cool.
Indeed.
What is your take, since you were just talking a little bit about apps and things like that? What's your take on those stick figure SLS apps and ghost hunting apps?
I think that so SLS is it's like LiDAR. It's basically LiDAR, just doesn't spin around and do like a whole 360 type thing. I think that's could be useful if you think there's anything to like light anomalies and stuff like that. Those types of things can be picked up using a Kinect camera, which is basically what it is. It's a stereoscopic cameras is all it is, right? But it also uses lasers, so it just shoots out lasers and they bounce off everything in the room, and it comes back and it reads the distance, and then it builds a picture based on that. So I think it can be used in good ways where you get good evidence, but also you can kind of trick yourself walking around with this thing, and it's trying to map anything that has like a build like a human. It's looking for things like shoulders and then a head or arms or legs or anything of that nature, and it will map chairs as people, windows, doorways. It'll do a lot of weird reflections. Yeah, it'll do a lot of weird stuff. I think it's useful, but obviously, just like with just about anything else in the paranormal investigation world, it has to be used in tandem with other things. So, if you've got other evidence to back up something that you catch on an SLS, it's more believable to me that that's actually the thing that you were experiencing something with SLS. If you get like, let's say, a ghost box response that says, "Oh, I'm in the room with you," and bam, there's the thing, and you can't go back and recreate that stick figure again. That's always interesting. Or if one just comes up out of nowhere. I like to keep them static, like looking in a direction. I'm not a fan of walking around with a SLS because, first of all, they're aggravating. The batteries always die. It's like you can't carry a big enough 12-volt battery around for those things. You can only use them for a little short periods of time. And the software is wonky because, everybody's using the Kinect SDK, and, that's kind of antiquated now. I guess there's other things, but they're always using the SDK. Somebody needs to actually like write a good program using the SDK.
I agree.
That's probably not going to be me because I'm not a code writer guy. I do what I have to get by for certain things, but most people are just kind of stuck on the stick figure thing. But I think there's much better ways to use the SLS than stick figures.
Yeah, I agree. And most people use them on their phone, and they're interrupted while they're using them with ads and everything, and it detracts from the technology that's actually there, because then you start to question, is it real? Or, is it just serving up a program that's preloaded with stuff in
Right.
there already,
Yeah, that's kind of the problem. One of the problems I have with the phone apps is, is that, like I said, I want to see the code. I want to know what it's doing.
Well, from a money standpoint, they should offer, like most apps do, if you want to not have ads, pay $24 a year not to have them. And then you don't get interrupted and you actually are using it as a tool versus making it feel like it's some cheesy, game app,
Yep. And, everything's pay to play nowadays. And it's not just pay one time and that's it. You got to keep paying or like it's hard to get an app that you can just get rid of the ads on. Just like sell me the app. I'll pay $20, whatever. I'll pay it. I'll pay $20 if the app's decent and I don't have to look at ads and I don't get interrupted and, everything. So I get that.
I used to play around with the apps and I stopped doing that quite a while ago. Once in a great while, I'll put an app on my phone, but I just don't feel that they're reliable. And I prefer separate equipment instead. I just find that they can produce more actual evidence. And I just find that I don't trust that whoever programmed it in didn't have some sort of algorithm that pops up kind of anomaly.
Yeah, especially if it's, when you have to grant permissions to the app to, like, let's say, access your location or data or, whatever, or it wants access to your microphone or this, you don't know what you're signing up for, basically.
That's right.
Just give me an app that, I have to pay for and it doesn't require, my friends list or my contact list
or your photos.
Whatever. Or your phone access to my photos. I get it if it's a camera based type app. Sure, it's gonna need that, but at the same time, like it depends on what it is. I want to know what's going on.
I have a question for you. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to hear your answer to this. Your tech is specifically designed for paranormal investigations versus tech that is adapted from other industries. And as I say that, I know that you use tech from other industries, but I'm talking about your products are specifically designed for paranormal investigations versus using something that was never designed for paranormal investigations specifically. Do you feel that there's a difference between creating tech products for paranormal investigations versus using something that wasn't designed for it? And is it substantial?
Yeah, there's a difference. Sure. There's a lot of people out there making stuff that they're just making a crappy version of something that's already exists, right? Like EMF detectors. Like we don't need more EMF detectors there. And as far as that goes, if it's something for, this you're using to like look at environmental readings or whatever, I feel like a lot of times your best bet is just buying something that's specifically for doing whatever that thing is. Like, an EMF detector. The Tri-Field wasn't originally for paranormal use, but that is like one of the best EMF detectors you can get.
That's what we use.
Because, let's see, that's mine. I lost it in LA. It's gone. Airport stole it, I guess. Whatever.
Jerks.
200, I don't know, 270, $300, whatever. It's gone. But anyways, so I feel like a lot of times if you're trying to prove something to somebody who doesn't believe in what you're doing, then you're going to want to take the route of look at the equipment I'm using. It's all calibrated. It's legit. It's used for whatever else, electrical work or whatever. So this is like tried and true stuff that we're using now. When you get into things that are designed for paranormal purposes, then we're taking an existing technology and applying it differently. So I guess the way you could look at that is like I do use EMF detection in my ghost boxes, for example, in my microcoms, but that applies to the speed of the sweep. So I take the EMF field around the box reads that, and then it applies it to a little formula that I wrote that basically breaks it down into a random speed based on the potential that's equal to the EMF level. I don't know if that makes sense or not. But so like if the EMF level goes up, then you have a longer period of time for the randomness to choose the sweep speed from. So I use elements that kind of have already been around or technology. I apply it to my equipment. So that's the difference, I guess. I'm not making things looking specifically for EMF or temperature or whatever. I'm going to take and kind of weave it into whatever I'm doing. So it's not like I'm discovering cold fusion, or is it fission? But but it's just applying different things differently. And I feel like that a lot of times you get the right combination and you get something cool.
I have just a few more equipment questions, and then I'll turn it over to Courtney. My first one is, how do you come up? What is your process when you come up with new devices? And I'm thinking, because Courtney and I were talking about the one you came up with for Ghost Brothers, where
the helmet.
Yeah. How did you come up with it? Did they come to you with the idea, or tell you what they were looking for, or did they just come to you and say, "Hey, like, build us something cool. This is what we're trying to do"? How did that happen? Like, how do you come up with new devices like that?
So okay, basically, like I said before, what I do is I will a lot of times take work that's been done in the past, and then I'll try to apply it. It could be paranormal type work or not. The helmet, for example, that idea was based on the God helmet, and that was Dr. Michael Persinger. He was a neuroscientist. He came up with that idea, and electronics engineer by the name of Stanley Coren, I believe his first name was Stanley, and his last name was Coren. But anyway, so he built the helmet based on Dr. Persinger's idea, right? And that idea was EMF field fluctuations targeted at a specific part of your brain could, the way he saw it was it could induce some sort of paranormal experience, right? Or a godlike experience. And so he didn't necessarily believe in the paranormal potential of it. He wasn't looking at it from that angle. His angle was, I'm going to show you how your brain can be tricked into thinking that it's having this experience. So I thought that was interesting. It was well documented. So their process and kind of how the helmet works, the actual electronics of the helmet, not so much. So basically I just used that concept and I worked backwards off of that and came up with my own helmet that would do something similar by focusing electromagnetic fields at the center part of your brain or your parietal lobe. So I've had a lot of success with that. Actually, we used that first in Ghost of Morgan City. Jeremy wore it, and then Dalen wore it on Ghost Brothers, and they also had it on 28 Days Haunted. They did a really cool little piece on it on 28 Days Haunted. Something I never could have done. They had a really cool like animation, it was all like legit, like something you'd see on History Channel or whatever. It had the helmet. It was 3D. It was really cool. But yeah, sometimes they will come to you and be like, okay, I need a device that detects evil. Can you make that? I'm like, well, I don't know what does evil look like. How does that?
Yeah.
What equals evil? I don't know. I can make things that are based off of environmentals and stuff. I can take readings. I can have all kinds of sensors, whatever. But I don't want to say I just come up with stuff on my own. I find interesting ways, I think, to bring an existing idea back to life. That's kind of been my success. The ghost boxes. Even I didn't come up with that. That was Frank Sumption who came up with the ghost box as we know it, or spirit box,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it. And Frank's boxes, I don't even own one, but I have friends that do. You think I'd have, of all people, I'd have a Frank's box, but I don't. I've never actually seen inside of one, but all of my work is based on Frank Sumption's work. That's his circuit. I had to decode that because he kind of made that kind of shady where, you really had to kind of be into that or know what you were doing to replicate what he'd done. Yeah, he put how he did it out there. We're talking like years of stuff that he's posted in forums and stuff. And, that's a rabbit hole right there that I went down. I like to take ideas that other people have had, obviously, and I put my own spin on them or apply them in a way where you can use them nowadays. Like Frank Sumption's ghost box, the way he built his, there were no radios really that were tuned the same way, so you couldn't actually apply that work that he had done to more radios. The radios that he used were becoming more and more antiquated, so it was getting to a point where it's like there are no more radios that you can modify that will do that. So, but I found, and I do give myself credit for this, I found like a whole line of radios, AM, FM, and shortwave, that we can scan now. And there's a lot of people doing that. And, I just want to say you're welcome to all you people who have found the new voltage tuning based on looking at my radios. But so it's more of a matter. I don't think it's hard to just come like straight invent some new idea anymore. I'm not saying they're not out there, but I think as humans we've had thousands of years of building on the knowledge that we have and communicating with spirits or whatever your belief may be in them. So I think it's always important to go back and look at what other people have done first.
Sure. No, it's a good, I get that.
I'm not saying copying people. I'm just saying
you're building on, some of you're building on some of the foundational stuff that had been done previously, and you're building on it, just like you said.
Right. Yeah.
Last question I have is, what are your go-to tools of the trade you typically use when you go on an investigation?
I just, a lot of people have, the whole Zach Baggins spiel, like, I want to prove to the world what I saw was, this paranormal thing. Yeah. I want to capture it, prove to the world that I'm not a crazy person.
Yeah.
I got past like the whole, I'm not trying to prove anything to science. It's going to be really I'm not going to say it will never be proven to science, but I'm going to say proven paranormal anything to science is going to be difficult. And at the end of the day, why? What good does that do you? Sure, funding, whatever, for more research, I get that. But for me, it's more like a calling. So when I go on an investigation, I am there to communicate. I'm not there to be like, oh, your house ain't haunted. It's the water heaters banging. I'm not trying to disprove things. I go into a situation and I kind of just go in with the intent to communicate with whatever's there. So I just basically try to open a line of communications using electronics that I have at my disposal, which is usually a ghost box. A lot of times I'll take my ink box. They call it the OG ink box. That's the original ink box. And that's the big, 80s boombox looking thing with the cassette tape. recorder player on it. You can record for EVP on cassette tape, which is really cool. And then you can transfer it to the SD card, stick it in the computer. So you can do that. And then also you got the AM, FM, and shortwave radio. I like shortwave for communicating, ITC. You're not getting a lot of radio chatter coming through. And, it feels more valid when you get a direct response through shortwave. And if you don't know, like, what I'm talking about, you just got to try it. Shortwave it's different. It's kind of a magical process, kind of how shortwave radio propagates, how the waves move. They use the ionosphere. It's a bunch of crazy stuff that goes into it. So, that kind of adds more layers to that for me. So yeah, I'll take a ghost box. A lot of times just an ink box. I'll have an ink box and my phone. And night vision cameras are great, and they kind of look spooky, and they give you a like a creepy vibe, like back in the day, Taps, Ghost Hunters, and being in the dark in some situations, I think does do something as far as to stir up activity in some situations.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Also time of day. Now, Courtney, feels like she can get activity any time of the day, but we have found that there's certainly certain times when the activity seems to escalate and there's more of it to find and get. But
that could be the nature of the haunting. It could be depending on lots of different things. What type of supernatural being are you dealing with? Is it actually a ghost, or is it something pretending to be something that it's not? Or so there's lots of different things you got to look at.
Courtney does a ghost tour in Monterey. So Monterey is very haunted, and they do these ghost tours. She's got a couple of spirits in Monterey that will actually respond on demand with her groups of people with lights and everything. It's the craziest thing. You think that it was you think that it was rigged, but it's not. And they go in there, she gives them EMF meters, and just like clockwork, those meters go off to Courtney's voice. It's crazy.
As soon as we turn a corner down the block,
yes,
they light up. And Tish came on the tour, and she was like, "Courtney,
Katie,
do you know that the trees even move
Katie,
when you talk? Not all of them, just some of them."
Yeah, it's like quiet as can be, except for two trees that are right outside of this house blow like a hurricane while she's talking. It's the strangest thing. If I hadn't seen it myself, I wouldn't have believed it. I really wouldn't have.
That's where the equipment comes in, and sometimes it's handy to have that to interpret the environmental things that are going on around you, like the wind or vibrations, and it's all very subtle energies, right? That are going on when
yes, and temperature. So we got a FLIR heat gun makes a difference. But when you watch, especially we get a lot of questions from listeners, but when you watch a show like Ghost Adventures and they go to a site and they bring out $100,000 worth of equipment, and they all think that you need to have 5 cameras set up and SLS, and I mean they have a lot of equipment and command centers and everything, and the reality is, and we tend to do this, and this is why I was asking you the question. We tend to start off, well, not with that much stuff, but we tend to start off with 4 or 5 things, and we quickly narrow down to a couple of things that are being responsive. We get rid of everything else.
Right. Yep. Yeah. You're using what's working for you, and that's good. A lot of people, that's actually a really good way to go about it. I just, in my experience personally, I kind of have narrowed it down just across the board. And, I'm going to talk to something So I'm going to use a ghost box. I'm going to have a ghost box with me. I'm going to do EVP recordings. It's cool to have all the cameras and, the
Yeah.
DVRs and everything.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of work, and it's a lot of people you're going to have to involve, or you're going to be doing a lot of the work yourself. But
Yeah.
and then you got to go over all that footage, and
Yes.
Oh,
if
gosh.
you're not going to utilize the data that you get, just don't waste your time.
You're right. You're right.
Doing all that. Yeah.
The
I like
ghost
to go
box,
into
spirit box.
something with a focus, like I feel that my focus is ITC. So that's how I can be most useful. I feel like in most situations, I'll go into a situation. How am I going to be useful? How's what I can do going to help? So that's how I approach it.
That's how Courtney approaches it too. Really, I mean, she's trying to connect and communicate, and she's not trying to tech it out. And so it's very much about just finding a way to communicate. And more times than not, it becomes a ghost box or a spirit box. And once in a great while, we'll record, but not really. I mean, we're not cutting a TV show for goodness.
No,
we're not. You're going for personal experiences.
Yeah.
Personal experiences. Yeah. That's I'm just going to throw a random number out there, but I'd say that's probably 90% of paranormal stuff that happens is personal experiences. And, if you can capture it, great. If not, then, did you want to anyway? I mean, is it something that are you on that mission to prove paranormal exists to non-believers, or are you there with intent to understand what's going on for yourself? It really depends on what you're there for, right? And so I think focus is you see a lot of teams, and they all got the same stuff, they all got the same equipment, and they bring it all out, and they do it at paranormal conferences too. You'll see like a team, and they'll have all their gear out on the table, and that's great. But like I like to see people like lasering in, focusing on like so we're just going to take this part, because there's the paranormal world. There's so many different routes you could take. It's either you go in with like a blanket solution, like I got everything. I've bought everything on GoStop. And I have it all in my nice black Pelican cases, and we're all just going to go post up, put all this stuff out, and take readings. Or you can go in and like with a purpose to do something that maybe other people haven't done. And so,
yeah. Well, and I love that personal experience, and I love their stories. And that's one of the things that Katie and I have connected on is that history and those stories. I really enjoy hearing and learning about the stories of the lives of these people who have lived, and the spirits that still hang out and want to tell their stories and share the space. And I really like that piece. And I think that's also what the spirits, I think a lot of them enjoy that connection too. And that's also why I don't need that fancy equipment. Because it's more of that personal connection.
Yeah. And if you have that natural ability to communicate like telepathically or, psychically or however, then that's even better. Y'all asked me earlier why I started building equipment and stuff. And, part of my response was because it's too expensive to buy equipment. So I started building but also it's because like with the helmet, for example, I got, the idea from Michael Persinger, and I just decided to apply it to the paranormal investigation route, as kind of opposite of what he did. He was trying to disprove something supernatural, and I said, well, maybe we can use it to prove something supernatural. And so, but I felt like the helmet would kind of take place of that natural psychic ability that mediums may have, that allows them to see things or hear people or talk to people that everybody else can't see. And I was always kind of jealous about that, like I want to see this stuff. I want I want to see what they're seeing. Well, I want to know what Cindy's seeing. I want to see it too. So that's the helmet's been pretty cool for that. I've seen a lot of weird stuff wearing the helmet. And but that's kind of also what drove me is like that personal experience. Because with the helmet, you're not going to produce any kind of material evidence. There's not going to be a data set that comes out that you can go over and compare to something else or nothing like that. It's simply what you see and what you experience while you're wearing the helmet. Now, if that can be like, let's say you've never been to a place before, you go there, you don't even know if it's haunted, right? But you go there as part of an experiment to wear the helmet, put the helmet on, you see a little girl in the room with you. There's no little girl there, so obviously, that was an experience provided by the helmet. And then, you tell your experience, and turns out there's a little girl ghost supposedly that haunts this place. You didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
But then, with the helmet, you saw this thing happen. So that's how I kind of justify using the helmet, even though there's no way to possibly record what you're seeing, but that would be awesome. But
but that's
it's about
so cool.
personal experiences.
And that's so cool, though, that it can enhance your experience and possibly show you what is going on there. That's really neat.
It could also show you something that's just really crazy and totally polar opposite to what everybody thought was going on there. Like Ashmore Estates, I've had two people wear the helmet there, and both of them said they saw one said that they saw an interdimensional being. And I'm like, how do you know it's interdimensional? And it's like, how do you explain that? Well, had on the colors, man, had on the interdimensional sign. No, they said that they just felt that was the case. Like it was, and it wasn't. It didn't say it was a demon. They didn't say it was a ghost. Said it was interdimensional. I'm like, well, that's interesting. And then another person wore the helmet, and they saw an interdimensional craft leaving the building while they were wearing the helmet. So it was interesting for two different people to say interdimensional, at a place which is like a poorhouse, right? It was like one of these state poorhouses, and so you would expect, I saw a little girl or an old lady or whatever.
Not interdimensional beings.
Yeah, not interdimensional beings. So that's but that's that personal experience, and
But also, and depending on what people believe in, if there are all these different dimensions that are occurring at the same time, we could all be seeing different things.
Sure. I mean, we could be like fish in the water. They're kind of two-dimensional, sort of. It's not really, but they live a sort of a two-dimensional life, right? Like they only know water and below, like just the water. Anything above, they can't really perceive. Anything outside of their senses. So you can kind of look at fish as a lesser dimensional being than we are, because we're able to experience above the water and in the water. That's kind of a simple way to look at it. That's not really technically how it goes, but and a lot of it's time too, right? Like most of your dimensions are time related. And I've been talking about that a lot lately. We have a little podcast that we do on Thursday nights. The generic paranormal show. It's me and Austin. And
I've been checking that out. The ones on time. I've been thinking, and dimension. I've been thinking about that more and more lately too. It ebbs and flows when it pops in and out. It's
crazy the interdimensional beings, because you would think like I feel like it's different than like say beings that exist at a different frequency. Like that's two different things, right? Yeah. Like that's not a different dimension that we're talking about at that point. That's just mass vibrating at a different frequency than what our reality vibrates at, which is crazy to think about. But then then you do have interdimensional beings, but it's not like, I don't picture them as like giant aliens or something that you just can't see. I think they probably would be like me or you. They just experience time differently. And like hyper differently. Like they're able, depending on the what dimension you're at, you have different abilities that are granted to you by that being in, being able to traverse that dimension. It gets pretty crazy.
Hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, and not just that, but then you get into multiverses, like different realities based on different choices branched off in time. And the higher you go up the dimensional chain, like the more ability you have, more mobility you have to go to these different places, right? Like you can, at a certain dimension, you can not only go back in time and forward in time, but you can also jump to different branches in time where you maybe married somebody else, or you died in a different reality, and this bunch of crazy possibilities there. But yeah, I mean, we could be a lot of times talking to living people just that are in a different dimension, right? Or between dimensions in time or something, but their voice, I think with ghost boxes, it may be like a carrier frequency, and their voice may project similar to the way that radio waves are emitted,
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes.
I mean, yes, gets kind of deep.
Yeah, it totally gets deep. And, and I have to admit too, I mean, I love the personal aspect of doing paranormal things, but I also do enjoy getting evidence. There is something about it that is just really fun to get. And when I when I do the ghost tours, I tell people I work to debunk some of the things that happen. I give them EMF detectors, and we talk about how the different colors show up and what they all represent. And I say to them, I will tell you when it lights up because of electricity, because A, I'm not a good liar. And B, when you encounter something paranormal, it is really special. And it's not every single day that you encounter something that is paranormal.
It's rare to actually have a good encounter. Yeah. And it's even rarer to capture it.
Yeah.
While it's happening. So
it is fun getting that.
Great. It's great to get, it's great to capture, your experiences. Yeah. I mean, well, it's kind of like, you don't need that to keep going and doing what you're doing, but it's good to have because it kind of keeps you motivated. It's kind of like fishing. Like if I go fishing in the morning and I ain't caught nothing by 10, I'm probably leaving, probably headed to the house, but if I catch a whole bunch of fish by 10, I'm gonna hang out, probably eat lunch, and then I'll wait till the sun starts to go down, and I'm gonna hit it again. But if I don't catch nothing by 10, I'm done. So yeah, it's good to have that little extra confirmation for you, keep it going.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for joining us. That was part 1. Join us in part 2, and Courtney goes through her list of questions for Katie Stafford, the paranormal mad scientist.